All right, y'all. Got everything set. We're on jack stands. Make sure you get that on and secure and do your shake test, whatever you need to do. If you're not sure what to do, just stop and don't go any further. Get someone to help you and do it right. That's dangerous. On to where we're going to get the lift. Directions here. Like I said, 1 through 11. I go through and I check mark things, and then I've put the size of the wrenches for each line for what you're dealing with here, and I will put that into editing so it's easier to see. But first thing we're going to do is, since it's up here, I put some WD-40 on everything, and we are going to remove the sway bar end link, which is this right here. That's a 21mm wrench. We're going to go ahead and take that off. The lower strut mount bolts off, which are these right down here, 18mm, and then we will loosen off those top ones up here. There's 3 up here, of course, like every other vehicle. Sorry, that's hard to see. Let's get back here. You got some light. You can see them up here. There's 3 of them on top, 18mm also. And we're going to remove the brake caliper, which is this here. And this nut here is going to be a 13mm. And we'll be able to pull that caliper out of the way. And you'll want to hang it up here somehow with a rope or a wire or anything like that where you don't break these brake lines. And what I go ahead and do is I take the extra step and just go ahead and pull this bracket. That way you got some leeway to move some of this stuff around in case you accidentally drop it or you pull a spindle too much. And after that is going to be the dangerous spot, which is the upper ball joint. This is the last thing you remove, and once I get to that point, I will go ahead and explain a little further on safety on that. Even with the wheels off and A-arms hanging all the way down, there's quite a bit of load on this spring right here, so you don't want to get yourself hurt. So we'll go ahead and pull everything off. I'll show you that as we go, and then once we get here, I'll show you a safety precaution to do, and then we'll start putting our new spacer in. This actually has a hex key in the middle to hold it, so the whole thing doesn't spin. So let me grab a hex key real quick. Just hold that here, spin your nut around. That's loose and out of the way. I'm gonna go ahead and just put that nut on there so I don't lose it. Here is your 2 lower strut mounts. These are 18mm like I showed you. So it's the same thing as that sway bar link I just showed you up there. Just pull these nuts off, these 2 here, and then we're gonna come up here and do the same thing with these. Here, and you can actually get up underneath the hood here on this Ford. It's got a lot more room than my Chevrolet did. You can get up there and knock them out with a ratchet or a impact if you got it. Alright guys, on the brake caliper, use your 13mm to get these bolts out here. But this little retainer, or whatever you want to call this thing, I've never dealt with before. See how it kind of spins with the nut? It wasn't allowing it to spin out, so what I did was I got a 15/16 wrench just to hold it in place. And then got my 13, broke it free, and then once you break them free from each other, it'll spin right out. Get your 2 bolts pulled out there. Get you a pry bar, flathead screwdriver, whatever. Go ahead and remove your caliper, and this is where you'll need to hang it with something so you don't stretch your lines. You can pull these pads off if you want. They're in there pretty good now. And then I'll get my 10mm. Go ahead and pull this bracket off. Guys, got the brake caliper off, and I got it hanging with a piece of wire from underneath the hood, so it's good to go. Next, we're going to get our tie rod end off. This is also 21mm. And then we're going to get our upper ball joint. This is 18mm. And I'm going to show you real fast. Like I said earlier, even though we don't have this sitting on the ground with the tire on it and everything and weight on it, there's still load on this spring. So what you need to do is get you another jack or something underneath here and just push that tension off of it just a little bit to where you've got some bind or some load on this lower A-arm before you take this off. Because if you don't, you risk that thing shooting down and coming out and smacking you right in the face, which is also why I left these nuts up here. So that way if it tried to go anywhere, at least if something shot this way, that spring would stay in there and hit this mount up here. Tie rod in, just gonna break that off real fast. Nut is off. Now what I do, if you've ever seen any of my other videos, they have tie rod tools, the pitchforks. I don't ever use them on these. One, you tear up the boot. Two, it's just that much more work and it doesn't really work that well to me. I just hit the spindle here. Now, you just need to give it a few love taps, you know? Nice and easy. Just don't hit your dust shield. There it went. She popped up. We're good to go. So right here, that's the last piece we're taking off, and this is the dangerous one. So what I've done is put a jack down here underneath the lower A-arm, put some tension on it, just raise it up a little. Don't raise it up so high you pull it off your dang jack stands, but just get a good load on it. And then we'll bust this free, and then we're gonna do this. Then we'll bust this free right here, and then we're gonna do the same thing we did on the tie rod end. We're just gonna hit the spindle here till it pops up. All right, we're right about the end of the threads. Now you can see we got that space there. Don't stick your finger in there. We got space right here, and this hasn't separated yet. So what I'm gonna do is hit this just like we did on the tie rod in here to allow that to separate, but this is gonna hold it from shooting off. And we also got the jack down underneath the lower control arm for extra safety. So these are all the precautions I take, and it's helped me a lot over the years without having any major damage or injuries. There it went. See it pop? Still has some good tension on it. We'll get that 18, and it is got some pretty good tension. So what I'll do is go ahead, put a little more load on the jack there. Yeah, okay, so I can move that by hand, so it's all right. The load is pretty much off of it, so it's safe to go ahead and separate this thing. For added security sometimes, you know, I'll get a bar or something like that and just push this down, so you know for sure it's not gonna fly off and smack you. And just let that go. Boom. Now we're ready to go ahead and finish pulling these nuts off the top of your strut. And then we'll lower that control arm down, pull the strut out. That's off the upper strut mounts. We know the nuts are off the lower strut mounts, so what I'm gonna do is go ahead and take the pressure off of that jack, let that thing come down. Be sure just to watch your brake lines and everything, make sure you don't have something pinched or something like that. And lower it down, and we'll pull that strut out. Hey guys, sorry the camera cut off. All right, so you've got your supplied spacer with the 3 spots for your 3 stud holes from the factory here. You're gonna take these supplied bolts here that are hex socket style. You're gonna run them in the other 3 holes, and they're already threaded. So you can see the threads there. So what you're gonna do is the spot that's drilled out, you're gonna screw these all the way in, and then your original stock bolts go right there, and that'll give us your spacer, and these become your new mounting studs. So we'll go ahead and run those in real quick. It's pretty simple. Just run them in like so, all the way till you bottom them out. So there's one. You see it's all the way in there. That'll be your new mounting stud. So I'm gonna go ahead and run the other 2 in there, and then we'll put it up on the strut. All right, you got all 3 secured on there. Now, you're just gonna put your factory bolts right here in the other 3 holes. Boom. Now, in the instructions, it states that on some models, these bolts may stick out of the top of your spacer here. And if that's the case on yours, you're gonna have to trim them off a little bit. And if you wanna know how to do that, go back on my channel, and I've got a couple other kits I did for torch, and we had to do that on those. So you can see how we trimmed them up. All right, bolted up, ready to go back in the truck. One more thing to add, guys. The stackable lift I did on my 2020 Chevy, I didn't have to do this, but this one, since you put that spacer on, you're actually spinning it. So these studs are not in the same place as they were before. That being said, your whole strut is going to rotate 180 degrees. So what I do is I just put it in a vise here and hook onto those bolts and get that dog on there, and I just twist it back because it's sitting at an angle factory, and then when you spin it around, it's sitting the wrong way. So if you'll just kind of pull that over and turn those down the opposite way to fit your 180, you'll be able to get it in. All right, y'all, so finally got it back together. Everything's tightened up as it should be. So it's time to go ahead and jack it up a little bit and put the tires on it. Ready to see how it looks right now. Okay, so running into those A-arm issues, I wasn't ready for that. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the truck out, go in and get a few hours sleep, and then I'll come back out tomorrow and get it cleaned up and let you guys see what the finished product is. So we'll see you tomorrow. Well guys, here it is, finished product. Got some good wheel clearance here. So that's really gonna help on these rough roads we go on.